man?
Good. How are you? Hey,
Oh,
Jeff.
there he is. Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Let me get a gallery view here. There we go.
You
Now I
get
got
the
everybody.
gallery view. You got the gallery.
Now I got everybody.
Oh,
Everybody got their guitars.
everybody's got
I
the
know.
guitars. I got my Kiss phone. Look at that, Scotty, a rainbow
But I
sign.
win. I got the brightest one back there.
I know, dude. That Jeff's orange Yamaha is like my favorite.
It is, right? Like, we went to NAMM the year that I met you, and he was watching all the kids. He's like, it's about the sharper guitars, man. He's just fucking about the sharper, brighter guitars, you know?
Dude, and he the first time I laid eyes on it, I'm like, it just screamed emergency. I was like,
oh yeah.
Isn't it funny though how it's all kind of come full circle where, you know, I can play in a band like Smashing Pumpkins and have a guitar like that, and it's not really that crazy anymore. I mean, it's a little bit. I was a little bit scared to get it. You know, I mean, but I knew I wanted it. You know, and now it's become a thing where like people almost expect it.
yeah.
You know, like they're kind of bummed if it doesn't show up.
I know. I've been thinking lately, like I need to do something. You know, because I love the traditional look of guitars. I like, you know, the old Fender styles and Les Pauls, and I'm all into the heritage stuff. But I'm due for something radical.
You are. We all are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember Jeff. Remember, you told me if it was 69, Hendrix wouldn't have asked for a guitar from 1942. He would have wanted the fucking next year's model, Jeff. You're like, you're like,
yeah, he was definitely wanting the new technology, right?
He was playing a current model.
Hendrix be playing a Paul Reed Smith now.
Yeah. Oh no!
Right. So, Scotty, what year did you start playing guitar?
I think it was 77. I had just turned 13, and my sister got me a month's worth of guitar lessons from her friend, and that's what got it started. I didn't have a guitar, and her boyfriend lent me a classical, like an area classical nylon string.
But were you already kind of obviously were you into rock music and guitar and stuff, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I had 3 older sisters, so they were, you know, they were always playing music around the house. So I grew up listening to all that stuff. I mean, the Beatles I was on a strict diet of Beatles when I was a kid, and all the other current stuff. And I remember them talking about Woodstock when it was happening, and I remember when Hendrix died because they were talking about that. And but news didn't travel as fast back then as it does now. You know?
Yeah, I guess the reason I'm asking is because, you know, Britt and I were talking about this the other day, just about, I started playing guitar about 1984, 83. And so when I started becoming like conscious of all those hard rock metal guys, they were already all there. I mean, Yngwie, Warren D. Martini, George Lynch, and of course Eddie Van Halen. And you know, so it's like it wasn't like, it was like I'm listening to Ted Nugent, Joe Perry, Ace Frehley, and then all of a sudden Eddie Van Halen comes along and totally changes the game. They all existed simultaneously for me, and then you kind of heard like, oh yeah, Eddie kind of came first. But even back then, you know, the music was so fashion conscious. You looked at Van Halen 1, you're like, this looks a little like old. You know what I mean? Because the clothes.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was talking about this earlier, that I was there to see that. I was there to see Van Halen come along and see how guitar came to this point, and then Van Halen, and then completely different overnight. You know, it was, and I remember hearing Eruption for the first time in my friend after school in my friend's bedroom. He's like, you got to hear this dude. And we had both just started playing guitar. Greg Phillips. And we were in a band.
I love that name. Greg Phillips. That's I grew up in Jersey. Greg Phillips's room, right?
Yeah, man. And he played Eruption for me, and it was like, what is that? And he's like, it's a guitar. There's no keyboards. That's just a guitar. And I remember this like it happened just the other day.
Isn't that funny? Everybody says that. Like, people thought, is that a keyboard? Because you couldn't imagine how'd you make that sound.
Yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah. But just imagine, I always say, just imagine if you were Ted Nugent or Joe Perry, whatever, and you're considered like, you're the best.
Right.
And then like one day, whatever, you're like, no, you're not anymore.
Yeah. You're Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, whoa, what is that? You know?
Yeah.
Oh my, you've been wrestling with that all week, right, Jeff? You decided to take your eruption upon yourself this week. We've been talking about
I
it.
did. Yeah. You know, because I never really learned, you know, I never learned it note for note. You know, I just kind of like, you know, I knew how to basically
bullshit
kind of
version, as you would say.
bullshit that some parts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I actually really started like, okay, I'm going to go
Wow.
and really start kind of getting underneath the hood and learning some of the phrases. And I'm not learning, I have some books and stuff. So I'm just like, you know, and of course they're all kind of wrong. So you got to get like 3 different opinions. You know what I mean? You know, I'm just like, going like, yeah. And then you go, that doesn't sound right. And then you go, a guitar player wouldn't really play it like that. You know what I mean? So you start figuring it out, but it's really cool. It's just really,
I've thought about tackling that, but it's just, it's out of, cause I don't tap, you know, I don't do that, you know, it's just, but that's so cool that you're
really, you don't really, but you did like 1 or 2 taps sometimes in solos.
Nope.
Never.
Nope. As a matter of fact, when I did Randy Rhoads Remembered a few years ago, I used to tap when I was like a teenager, and then I got out of it and I lost interest in it and went somewhere else. But I played Crazy Train and I had to relearn the tap, but I used the pick for that one because it's so.
Oh, okay.
So I used the pick to tap it, but.
You're like, my right hand finger shall not touch the fretboard.
I have this thing. It's like, it seems like the only time my right hand ever touches the neck is when I'm cleaning it.
I don't.
And it's just because I suck at it, you know. It's just, I'm not good at it. I mean, there's so many guys that just have it down. It's like, I'm not even going over there, you know. It's like if you're a champion swimmer and then somebody challenged you to a foot race. It's like, no, man.
Well, if I could kind of fast forward then a little bit from 77 then to when you guys started Skid Row, you and Snake, especially, you know, upon hearing that first record, well, there's a bunch of things that I noticed at the time, but I'd already developed an ear, which I loved, is that really you guys didn't play bluesy, but it wasn't classical. You know, it was kind of like a very, like this kind of melodic playing, but very aggressive, very in your face, like, and I describe it as very explosive playing, like the notes were jumping off the fretboard and the sound mimicked that. But like I said, not a lot of blues, you know, but like I said, not doing the neoclassical thing. Were you guys very conscious of all that?
Well, we were working at a music store, the two of us, and we were listening to the Shredder guys, you know.
Yeah.
We're listening to Steve Vai and Yngwie and George Lynch. Warren, you know. So that's kind of where my head was at the time. And you know, you do hear tapping on those records, but that's all Snake. He does, he does all that stuff. He's way into it. He's good at it. But we were both, you know, way into that, what was happening at the time, and we wanted to be part of that. So that's where that came from. You know, that's where the big tone came from and the style. You know, we may not have been as good as some of those guys, but that's that's the direction we were going in.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you guys, to me, it was very, and to this day, it's very impressive. And I was actually, another thing I was telling Britt is especially you, because you played on both, if I recall correctly, 18 in Life and I'll Remember You.
Right.
Guitar. There's one thing to be able to play some hot guitar, and then there's another type of pressure to write a solo that's going to be a hit song guitar solo.
Play for the song within the song.
Play for the song.
Yeah, but it's
the song, right?
Yeah, but that's a, you know, you must have been, how old were you when you recorded those? You must have been just a kid still, right?
Well, I was 24, and you know what? Looking back on it, I think it's pretty good for a 24-year-old.
Amazing for 24 years old. I don't know. I was still thinking about cereal when I was 24.
I think I was a senior that year, but my two New Jersey guitar players I saw were you. I sat under the stage when Matt Fallon was singing for you upstairs at Mingles. I said, and like, is that what it's supposed to be? And then after I saw that show, I played in Homedale, an aerobic center with a Ozzy kind of cover band called Sanctuary. This guy, Jeff Weiland, which was Zach, which was the good. And that was what I thought you were supposed to be. It was just so intense and so weird that then those two, my first two guitar players I'd really ever seen that were big boys, other than the recreation, the rec fair where someone covered Sabbath, went on to be on that flight to Russia and really did take over the earth.
It's pretty interesting because, you know, we knew Zach from the music store before anybody ever heard of any of us. You know,
he worked at Marlboro Music by me. I remember he taught there too.
Well,
and you guys were Tom's River Music, right?
He used to come down to Garden State Music in Tom's River and visit us. And we'd always get excited when we saw him walking in because we knew he'd sit down and play. And it was a spectacle just like it is now.
Oh, really? Even back then? He already had.
It was incredible. I remember the first time I saw him before I knew him was I walked into Stone Pony one night. It was empty and Zyrus was playing. And he was out on the floor on his knees, just shredding the hell out of something. There was like nobody there. And it's like, this guy. It's like a rock star right in the middle of, you know, it's like a Wednesday night and there's, you know, scattered people in the bar and he just taken over the place. And then eventually he started coming into the store and it was always a lot of fun when he came in because we always put a guitar in his hand and have him play and just drool over it. Wow. It was really cool. And then, you know, a couple of years later, there we all were, as you mentioned, on that.
That's just incredible.
Russia to go play the Moscow Music Peace Festival.
Do you pinch yourself when you got your buddies? I mean, I grew up in Jersey. Your Jersey buddy. How did this happen? I mean, even what did you pinch yourself that your buddy from Jersey, all these Jersey guys are with Nicky? You know, those guys were Spider-Man when we were growing up. They were heroes. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that whole Russian thing was crazy because it wasn't much longer than a year before that we were working at that music store.
Yeah.
And here we were on that plane.
Unbelievable.
All these people we grew up listening to and admiring, and you know, Scorpions and you know the Bon Jovi guys. It was old hat for us because we knew those guys.
Yeah.
But no disrespect, but Motley Crue and you know Ozzy.
Oh like, my God! Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, my friend's in a band with Ozzy. Wow.
Yeah. Man, and do you remember was Skid Row the first time you came to Hollywood in California? Was it with Skid Row?
Yeah.
It wasn't. I was at the Whiskey Show. I don't know if that was the first time. I was actually at that first Whiskey Show, but
I'm not sure we played the Whiskey the first time we came. Well, the first time we came out here as a band, I don't think we played. We came out because we were signed to McGee Entertainment. Doc McGee was managing us, and he brought us out here for a charity event, a TJ Martell Foundation event, to kind of debut us to the industry out here. And then we came back and played, and I know we played somewhere like in Orange County, and I don't remember, it was broadcast live on the radio, and we might have played the Whiskey back then also.
There was, you guys came, it was a big deal. It was the Hollywood debut. It was like, it was insane. It was
cool.
Really,
that was really fun and very exciting.
It changed the atmosphere of this trip. And it was you're proud to be from Jersey because we had moved to Hollywood to be Guns N' Roses, to have something, our shit's cool. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you know, we were very proud East Coast guys, and the Hollywood didn't rub us the right way.
Really? That's what I was gonna ask you. Was it like something that you were excited to, someplace like you were excited to go to?
Yeah, I was really excited to go, but I found everybody to be really rude and competitive. True. You know, where I think back east it was kind of a camaraderie, and out here everybody like, you know, give you the side eye. It's like, really? It's like, aren't we all doing this together? Aren't we all outcasts? Aren't we all rockers?
But you're out here now, right?
Yeah. Here I am. You know, 5 miles from Hollywood right now.
The one thing I found when I landed in Hollywood was that growing up back east, you had to play. You had to argue of who could play Phantom of the Opera, right? I played bass, who could play it better. That I thought, because Hollywood and magazines look so crazy, everybody's going to play their ass off. I was like, wow, it ain't so, no one's really killing it. I mean, there were some bands killing it, but there was a big drop off from Guns to what was up on the Strip and what it looked like to the
I never had
playing.
a chance to go see any bands while I was here because we were really, really busy. So
Okay.
I didn't go see any of the bands. So I didn't, but I was aware that the MIT was here, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
Musicians Institute, not the other MIT, but the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Jeff?
The important MIT is
Yeah, right.
what you're talking about.
I want to ask you guys both the same question now that we're on this. Jeff, do you remember the first time you set foot on an arena stage from being in clubs and the Coconut Teaser and what it was like? The first time you stayed, you know?
Yeah, you know, it was crazy because when I joined Smashing Pumpkins, I'd only played clubs. And then when I joined the band, the first show we played was a theater show in Paris. When it was a European tour, and it was like 3,500 people. It wasn't like a small place, but it wasn't an arena. But then like 3 or 4 days later, we were playing Rock and Ring or Rock and Park, which is an outdoor festival, and it was like 60,000 people. And I just was like I really, that first year, I really didn't enjoy it because it was such a jarring juxtaposition to me. Like I'd never played show. It wasn't like I got to gradually move up and playing hundreds. It was like all of a sudden you're playing these places, and and as you know, Scotti, it's like after you watch a band on TV and you're like, wow, like look how they're doing that. They're running around and playing, and then once you play, you're like, I'm even more impressed, like watching bands, even like you guys at the Moscow Music Peace Festival. You watch a band like Rainbow or something from the 70s because you know how hard it is to hear anything on a stage like that.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah, no in-ear monitor, and you're going like, wow, like Scotty's on the edge of the ramp, like over there in front of the PA, just killing this solo.
Yeah, you literally just playing death most of the time. You can't, the drummer's 20 feet away, maybe further, and you've got a monitor and it's blasting, but the mix is probably shit, and really like you're playing a solo and you're just like you got to look down to make sure you're in the right spot because you can't hear it. So,
that's what I was always wondering because back then it's like
and
I remember because if I moved 1 or 2 feet, you're like, I can't hear anything.
Yep.
And you guys were running around. It's crazy.
Don't play off the PA,
Yeah.
Do you remember your first arena show, Scotty?
I do. It was I think it was in Pennsylvania. What's the name of that place? Oh my God. This is before Skid Row was even signed. We were invited to open one Bon Jovi show out in Pennsylvania.
I remember seeing that in the Aquarium. So that means Matt Fallon sang that show.
Yeah, it was a big deal because we didn't even have a record deal at the time. So he was just, John and Snake grew up together and they're super tight. So he's like, I'll put my friend's band on the gig. And we went out and played that arena. Oh man, I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was the same thing Jeff describes. It was like really exciting. And then you get out there and, once you get indoors, that's a whole different thing. Because, it's a different kind of not being able to hear. It's being able to hear everything super loud at once. And it's just it's like a freight train going through the room. You can't decipher.
Wow. It's funny. We were talking about your lead style not being bluesy, and every time you guys say one guy's name, you literally light up. Let's talk about George Lynch and the influence he had on both of you.
Oh, yeah.
You go first, Scotty.
Yeah, well, he is, out of all these guys, Eddie Van Halen aside, he is, I think, the most unique of the early shredders. With his phrasing, his phrasing, and it's just kind of an erratic thing that all works in the end. And he's a tone seeker, and his tone is always amazing. And over the last few years, we started doing shows with him, And well, we've done shows with him for quite a while, and of course, you know, you always go out and watch, and
Right.
it's just always, it's always mind blowing because he's just so great. I mean,
Yeah.
always been so great. Even if you go back and watch, like, remember We Are Stars? It was like
Oh yeah, I
heavy
played that
metal
on my show, the full
to,
video.
yeah. So if you go out and watch that, man, and he's doing his solo part, and people are just hooting and hollering in
Yeah.
the control
Yeah.
room because he's great.
I know on that Stars, I think that you watch it now and you go, George Lynch and Yngwie Malmsteen are the two kind of masters of the guitar on that video. Like, you know, Yngwie's just effortless and just great solo, and then Lynch is just coming up with all these, you know, his like you said, I think you said his phrase, everything is so, he's unique.
Yeah.
You know, he always sounds like George Lynch, and that's, and in the music industry, as you learn over time, like being unique is going to get you the farthest down the road, you know, anytime. It's like having that unique sensibility. And I mean, he's just so great, that combination of like speed and fluidity, but he always knows how to grab the right note and just hold it and like let the chords change behind the whole, you know what I mean? To it, it just gives it that, you know, he just has an uncanny knack for doing it.
You nailed it. You nailed it because you're right. The way, you know, he'll come out of a flurry of notes and then just grab a note and let it hang. Not even make it sing, just pull it a little bit. It's like,
I know, it's
that's
so
not
good.
even, that's not a half step. That's not a whole step. Maybe it's a quarter step, but it works. You know, it's
I know.
create that tension. It's perfect.
Yeah, we with Pumpkins, we invited him to play with us in like 2008, and he came to the gig, and so we worked on with this thing, and he played, and I don't think our audience knew who he was, you know, so they're just like, who's this guy up there? Right. He's like, right. And he brought the vintage Marshall Plexi head, the tiger stripe guitar, so this Tom, it was just phenomenal, you know, and so we wrote this really long section so he could solo for like 3 minutes straight. You know what I mean? And the place went nuts afterwards. I mean, people were going ballistic because they had no idea, but he had that level of talent to be able to just transform the room with his playing.
Oh yeah.
And that's the rare gift. You know what I mean? That's a very rare gift that people can do.
He still does. It's you know, some guys you go see and you're like, yeah, all right, yeah, but like his energy, his musical energy, is just as powerful as it was, you know, back then.
I agree. Yeah.
I tell Jeff, Scotti, when I call Jeff, you know, we speak 50 times during the day. I call him distortion during the day. When you were a kid, you played with distortion during the day, but as an adult, you don't play with distortion during the day. But Jeff plays, if you call him, 90% of the time the distortion's on during the day, and Lynch strikes me as one of those guys. No, you're like you stop doing that. Isn't that something that it's always that takes an effort? That's not just the guy on the couch. You'll just call me distortion during the day, figuring out something by Yngwie or Racer X or something.
Well, you know, it's like day drinking. It's a commitment.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure Scott from Yamaha, he's giving you one of those THR amps.
You mean this?
Yeah, exactly. I got one of those. And so makes it easy to have distortion during the day, right?
Oh yeah. Because
you can play it really quiet, because for me, it's like I used to be, I don't want to say late, but you know, play the electric unplugged and stuff. And there is something to be said for that, but it's never how you're going to play.
Right. Yeah.
So getting used to controlling all the string noise and all that kind of stuff, to hear what your pick attack really is going to sound like through,
right.
You know, I feel like, so I'm like, well, might as well get as much practice of what it's really going to sound like.
Yeah, sure. I mean, because, you know, if you're using a tube amp, even if it's, you know, something small, 20 watts, you know, you could really make a lot of noise with a small tube amp. And in order to get it, as you know, in order to get it to sound good, you gotta drive those tubes and push that amp. So this is a great answer. And the thing about the THR-10 is the effects sound great. It's got the distortion it sounds real. Yeah. And, you know, maybe you've seen I I demonstrated my "I Remember You" solo on the original blue guitar, and I put it up on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I learned that's how I learned how to play it from watching it, so I can play it correctly.
Right on. And I played it on the THR-10, and I even posted that at the end of the video, but nobody watched the last thing. But I get all these comments like, "How'd you get that tone? Where'd you get that tone?" I'm like, well, it's first of all, it says it at the end of the video, and second of all, it's right there in that amp.
It's right here. It's right here.
Yeah, it's
My head's right here. You can't gotta have these hands.
Man.
So it's so cool, and yeah, distortion during the day.
100. And I think we should end on. Let's talk about the magic of the guitar. What were you going to say, Jeff? The magic of the guitar to you, both of you.
Sure, but I wanted to ask Scotti though. I know Scott, you're a big food guy, Scotti.
Food. Sure. Yeah.
What's your, so I know you obviously love Japanese food and Korean food. So what are your favorite kind of go-to dishes or places in LA?
Oh, well, we go to Koreatown all the time. We go down there. Well, it's kind of closed right now, but they still have takeout, and like kimchi jjigae, which is like a kimchi.
Oh yeah.
It's fantastic, and
well, I'm half Korean, so I grew up eating all that. Yeah, so and I'm a big kimchi jjigae is.
I love it.
Like that's
Yep, and as far as Japanese goes, of course, sushi. I love sushi, but I eat a lot of ramen. And as it happens, I live in a neighborhood that has a number of. It's got a Japanese population, so
because you're kind of over there in West LA, right?
Yeah, I'm in West LA.
So on Sawtell there's all those.
It's just a few blocks from here, so I can walk over there and I can eat ramen, or I can get like Tokyo barbecue and all that stuff. So it's all right there, and I do. So,
amazing.
Not to mention my wife, who is from Japan, makes some pretty incredible dishes as well. So that's all good, man. Being an East Coast guy, I miss the pizza. I miss the pizza from back east.
The Rainbow, come on, the Rainbow's got.
Well, the Rainbow's got really good pizza. They do. It's not New York style, but Joe's in Santa Monica on Broadway in Santa Monica is the closest I've found, and it's really good. And it's just down the street, so I head down there, and my son and I hop on our bicycles and ride over there and get some pizza.
You've been biking a lot. I love that, man.
I'm going out right after I get off the phone with you guys. Yeah.
Wow. Did you BMX as a kid?
I did.
What was your bike? What was your bike? I had a PK Ripper.
You know what? I don't even remember what it was, but when we were on our first tour, our first big tour, we were opening for Bon Jovi, and we stopped at a truck stop in Nevada, and I hit like $350 on a slot machine. So that afternoon in Salt Lake City, I went to the bike shop and bought a red line.
Whoa! Stu Thompson, come on!
Yeah, and the management threw a fit. Rachel and I both went out and bought bikes that day.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. Why? Because they worried that you could injure yourself or something.
Yeah. They wanted to protect their golden geese, So
you guys skyrocketed. I mean, it was like from 0 to 100,
and quick. It was so quick we didn't realize it, man.
Yeah, and what was it? Let's talk about that. You guys were both on the cover of the guitar magazines. Jeff said, "What is that like for you guys being kids?" I know you bought all those magazines, plugged in your stereo with the Radio Shack splitter, and now you're on guitar magazine covers. Does that feel pretty cool, Scotti?
Oh yeah, I had all the guitar magazines. As a matter of fact, I still have a box of the very, very early ones. I have the first guitar magazine I ever bought from 1978, and to be on the cover of one of those magazines, it's like one of the bigger deals, as Jeff could tell you. It's just because you spend so much time looking through there, and you see a picture of Jakey Lee hanging out with George Lynch, and you're like, wow, I'm part of this,
They're like mythological characters. They're not real people, right?
Yeah, and now and I'll check my I'll go on Instagram and I check my messages, and there's kids that that look at me like that.
Oh, I was one of them. I am one of them. You know what I mean? It's
No, I think, Scott, you were lucky. I mean, by the time I got to be on the cover of what it's, more recently, and it's just the culture's not the same as it was. I mean, to be on the cover of Guitar for the Practicing Musician in 1989 was much different than being, it would be like 2020. You know what I mean? It's not. Back then, it was like, that was for a guitar player. That was probably better than the platinum record, right?
It was the platinum record. Yeah. It's a good comparison because it was the platinum record. It was, like being on Guitar World and Guitar for the Practicing Musician, and it's one of those trophies like being on Saturday Night Live.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Or playing at Moscow Music Peace Festival, or playing Monsters of Rock at Castle Donington, something like that. They're all like in that same category of like, wow, they're achievements that are really cool.
Well, yeah.
And, I don't save a lot of the magazines, but I save those magazines, of course, because they're really special. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, I couldn't find my Guitar World with Snake and I on the cover, so I bought one off of eBay.
That's amazing.
Perfect
man.
copy.
Yeah. I've recently, in the last few years, I went and bought a bunch that I used to have from the 80s.
Yeah.
Because when I had them, when I lived at home with my parents, I subscribed and I got just years and years of them. And then I moved out and I put them in a box in the garage. And then one year, I went home to go find them, and they were all gone.
Yep.
My parents were like, "Oh, we didn't know you wanted those. We threw them out."
Yeah, it's like, big heavy box of magazines. Put them to the curb.
Yeah. So I went and rebought a lot of them.
Put them to the curb with those old Lionel trains. Nobody's
exactly. Yeah. So.
Man, well, thank you. You guys, one thing I know, I've hung out with both of you, hang out with Jeff a zillion, we talk 50 times a day, but the love you guys have for guitar and watching you guys just talk about it is so special. And everybody on the show is going to be so thrilled to hear this. And it's genuine passion. It's so cool to see. And I really want to thank.
Jeff, I'm glad he showed up. I'm so glad.
No. Britt asked me, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to just go, why don't you come on too? Because I think it'll make it a more fun conversation." I was like,
the only time we get to geek out is when we see each other in NAMM, really.
And thank God we're going to have a break this year, right?
My head just went away from last year.
I know. It's just
Before we go, Jeff, tell them that place you took me to in Koreatown, that great restaurant.
Britt came down because I'm back here in LA, and I actually took Britt in to BCD Tofu.
BCD Tofu.
On Wilshire, yeah. Well, there's a bunch of them. There's two. There's one on Western. There's one on Wilshire. The one on Wilshire is bigger, and as you've probably noticed out here in Koreatown, they have like the outdoor seating like dialed in. You know what I mean? They've transformed the whole parking lot into like outdoor seating.
The other day, and there was all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, so they're trying to make the best of it, and thankfully in California it's actually, even though it's a little bit cold this week, you know what I mean, they're
making it work. They're really
working. Yeah. So
well, the next time I'm out, we'll all three have to go and talk some more rock. I really thank you both for your time. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great ride, Scotti.
All right, bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.